We are in Psalm 64. We're picking it up in verse 5. And what's happening is David is going to God in prayer, and before the Lord, he's processing the behavior of people that are plotting against him. So we left off in verse 4. Verse 1 says his enemies are in secret counsel, insurrection, working in sinfulness. They're sharpening their tongues like swords and shooting words like arrows, bitter words. They're trying to shoot in secret at the perfect. We talked about that yesterday. Suddenly they shoot at him and they fear not. So it's flagrant. It's audacious. They've just basically taken God on, or relegated themselves as more powerful than God. There's an audacity here that is blasphemous, really. It's just confronting, it's shaking their fist, it's spitting in God's face. So we pick up today in verse 5. They, speaking of the enemies still, they encourage, or they make themselves strong in an evil matter. Now this is interesting to me, because these are people who have, at this point now, they've just kind of sold themselves to do evil, to the point that it's become really intentional and strategic, and they're working hard at it. Okay, these aren't people that have just kind of accidentally tripped into temptation. These are people that are really being diligent and working hard and making their abilities strong. They're invested into evil. And then David says they commune of laying snares privately. They're plotting and conspiring to lay traps privately. They're looking for ways to snare David. And they say, who shall see them? Who's going to know? So you know who this is? This is the leaders. These are the power holders, because when these were the law enforcers saying, we can do whatever we want, because who would know? And if anybody knows, who's going to have the power? You see the flagrance. And this comes upon people that hold power, that hold authority, whether that's a parent or a pastor or a law enforcement officer or a governor or a president or a king. Anybody that holds some sense of authority or power can exploit, misuse, abuse that a delegated place of influence and responsibility. That sacred stewardship can be betrayed. The heart of God can be betrayed. And that's what's happening here. And they just think no one sees them. They don't give an account to anybody. They give account to themselves. And they're forgetting there is a higher authority, and that their ultimate accountability, the one where all power comes from, is God. And so I take verse 5 as a bit of a warning shot to me, that, and it should be to you, whatever power, whatever influence, whatever authority you hold in this life, it is delegated to you by your God. And you are not free to parent however you want, to lead your organization however you want, to lead your employees however you want. You're not free to do that. You're not free to wield power that God's given you in whatever way you want, because it's not yours. There is an accountability. There is someone who sees. There is someone who watches. And so we ought to be taking the energy of verse 5, encouraging themselves in an evil matter. We ought to be taking that same energy to strengthen and build up ourselves in good matters, in wise use of our time and our resources and our opportunities and our privileges and our stewardship. We ought to put the same energy and passion into wise and careful stewardship for the Lord. David continues in verse 6, they search out iniquities. Now think about the hard work they're going to. They're searching out sin. They're looking for more creative and better ways to do sin. They accomplish a diligent search. Do you see the work? David's making it a real point to talk about how much work, verses 2 to verse 6, how much work his enemies are going to defy God, to rebel, and to engage in sin and evil. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. Let's go back to verse 6 and read the whole thing. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. David says, can I paraphrase or maybe rephrase or give a sense to this? Their diabolical wickedness, their unrepentant rebellion has become systemic. It's become their very identity. Their quest in life, their search, the only satisfying thing to them, their every inward thought, the internal conversation of all of them, the depths of their being is wicked in nature, and putting another down, destroying another to lift themselves up and retain power. It's a dangerous place to be. And let me just comment to this, because this was Saul and his council, his kingdom, and a proud, arrogant man that descended in toxic leadership as a narcissist, devoured himself and others, but he brought others around him that had the same kind of tactics and political motives and self-centered narcissism. And their very identity became corrupt and so off track in their leadership. Now, there's a couple things here, and I'll wrap up today. And the first is that if you've been given leadership or responsibility or influence, it's a dangerous road to go off road with your identity and to be enlarged in yourself, and to go down a road where you'll start to do anything to get ahead. You'll cut any corner. You'll plot any strategic, immoral, unfair injustice just to get your will done, and to make sure you win. That's a very dangerous place to be, and it really kind of consumes your identity. You become an idolater at the core. But if you pull back maybe to a 10,000-foot view, the other view I want to give you here is, what is David doing in verses 1 through 6? Because he's going to turn a corner in verse 7. Look at the first two words of verse 7, but God. So we're going to pick that up tomorrow. But verses 1 through 6, again, as he does so many times, he is venting essentially to God all that his enemies are doing. He's complaining. I mean, he's describing in detail what his enemies are doing, but how's he complaining? Is he just griping? Is he just moping? Is he just in kind of pointless, useless murmuring? No. He has gone vertical with reverence, respect, and prayer to God, and he's laying out his situation in detail. He's chronicling his situation for us, but he's processing his situation to the Lord, and that's just a very wise thing to do. So whatever the application to you today, take these things to heart, meditate on these things, and we're going to turn a corner tomorrow as we look to verse 7. So thanks for joining me. Happy Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow.